Richard Dawkins, the bastion of intellectual creationism critique. He's someone that is very convincing for a lot of people that are novices when it comes to religious philosophy and Christian theology. And he rose to prominence as a really well respected biologist. He's won a lot of awards for his books like The Selfish Gene, The Blind Watchmaker, and The God Delusion. And he's also established the Richard Dawkins Foundation, which promotes the cause of removing religion from science. To me, he's a goofy. He's never had any arguments that made me think twice. Maybe I'm just too stupid to understand what he's talking about. But today, what I'll be doing is I'll take a look at a video entitled The Best All Time Arguments Against Religion. And it's a clip of Richard Dawkins in here that I want to focus on. And it's important because if you pay attention to the clip, you can kind of notice a sleight of hand that he uses here. There's this sneaky way that he and his fellow new atheists like to argue for atheism. And I think it is something that needs to be exposed if you want to seriously critique religion and understand theology. So I'm going to go ahead and play the clip and then I'll have some commentary after.
And the only alternative to it being a family tree is that the intelligent designer deliberately set out to deceive us in the most underhand and devious manner. Moreover, the same thing works with every gene you do separately, and even pseudogenes that don't do anything but are vestigial relics of genes that once did something. I find it extremely hard to imagine how any creationist who actually bothered to listen to that could possibly doubt the fact of evolution, but they don't listen. I mean, your question is a perfectly good question, but it's not really relevant, because what they do is simply stick their fingers in their ear and say la la la. They know what's true because it's in the holy book. And that even, I mean, the most extreme case is the geologist Kurt Wise, who has a PhD in geology from Harvard, and said, if all the evidence in the universe pointed towards an old Earth, I would be the first to admit it, but I would still be a young Earth creationist, because that is what Holy Scripture teaches me. You cannot argue with a mind like that. A mind like that, it seems to me, is, well, a disgrace to the human species.
So first off, if someone who understood the science and the biblical teaching saw a conflict there, that would likely mean that their interpretation of scripture is faulty or that the science is faulty. That is if Christianity is true, which is the position that I'll be arguing from today. So if Richard gave a fair characterization of his Christian colleague's view, then I would say that there's something wrong with holding those contradicting ideas, of course. But that isn't the main point here. The issue of this scientific research from a Christian view goes something like this. Archaeological and biological research relies on well-tested, repeatable methodologies like radiometric dating and molecular clocks, and these methods operate under the assumption that natural processes are consistent over time. Trying to reinterpret the data through the lens which I'll propose shortly would require a Christian to reject the assumption that these processes are consistent. How would this work? Well, a brief summary would be that the biblical flood of Noah would have dramatically altered the Earth's surface and deposited sedimentary layers that are now interpreted as being formed over millions of years. And the intense pressure and water activity during the flood would have provided ideal conditions for rapid fossilization. And in Genesis 9:1, it says, "Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, 'Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth.'" Given the small number of people among Noah's family and the implications of inbreeding on genetics, it could be understood that this command also implies God enabling the necessary genetic diversity and adaptability in Noah's family to fulfill this task. Notice it said God blessed Noah. This could account for the wild diversity among humans, other species we see today as well, and it would be an implication from the verse where God commanded the family to repopulate the earth. It would be consistent from this view to hold that large amounts of genetic diversity among animals and humans could be the result of this command and allowance by God. Also, the global flood view would nicely account for the plethora of fish fossils at the peak of mountains, for example. This is where the old Earth hypothesis uses plate tectonics and millions of years for these developments to take place in these geological structures. From a Christian perspective, the Bible is infallible and scientific interpretations consistently change and are markedly transient. Consider geocentrism as an example. But Christians should not die on this hill. There are primary doctrines to Christianity, like the Trinity, the deity of Christ, and the resurrection of Christ. The age of the earth is a tertiary issue. So this is not an argument that should be presented to people that want to hear general apologetics, but it also serves to point out that Dawkins was not actually engaging with the core primary claims of Christianity in the first place. He has a history of ducking actual confrontations with Christian philosophy. He will insult William Lane Craig, for example, but not debate him. He will use biology to try and disprove Christianity by saying that a tertiary doctrine of Christianity, for which its interpretation is not completely clear or essential, will somehow disprove Christianity as a whole. And by focusing exclusively on biology, Dawkins arguably critiques a straw man of Christianity rather than its core philosophical and theological claims. Why is there something rather than nothing? What is the source of moral values? What happens after death? Philosophical inquiry and theological reflection are necessary tools to address these questions, which fall outside the purview of biology. Dawkins' biological critique often reduces religious belief to evolutionary mechanisms like the God gene or memes. However, this explanation is descriptive, not evaluative. Explaining why humans are religious does not address whether religious beliefs are true or meaningful. This reductionism may miss the spiritual and existential dimensions of Christianity, which cannot be fully understood through biology alone. While Dawkins is an expert in biology, his critiques of Christianity often venture into philosophy, theology, and metaphysics, where his arguments lack the depth and nuance required. His understanding of theological concepts has been criticized as overly simplistic. Engaging with Christian philosophy requires grappling with arguments about the nature of being, ethics, and metaphysical causation, which are not reducible to scientific inquiry. Richard Dawkins' biological critiques of Christianity may be valid within their specific scope, but fail to engage with the overarching point of Christian philosophy, which addresses questions of ultimate meaning, morality, and metaphysics. To engage Christianity fully, one must move beyond empirical science and address its philosophical and theological claims, which have sustained intellectual inquiry for centuries. Dawkins' focus on biology, while compelling in its domain, misses these deeper dimensions, resulting in an incomplete critique of Christianity. But what did you guys think? Do you think I missed something here? Do you think I'm way off the mark? Let me know in the comments. Drop your best rebuttal to my arguments in the comments. I'm looking forward to having a good conversation back and forth. I always respond to the comments that I think actually are in good faith. Go ahead and drop a subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what you want to see in the next one.